What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT, here to give my reactions to some of the recent head coaching hirings that have taken place in the NFL over the last few days. The Raiders hire Pete Carroll. When I first saw this news pop up on my phone, I'm gonna be honest, I flat out laughed. I was not expecting them to hire 73-year-old Pete Carroll, who, let's just be honest, he's on his last leg. Some people are saying that this is a move to not really try to win a Super Bowl, compete for a championship, but it's just to get some optimism going, which I understand, but you could have did better than 73-year-old Pete Carroll. You could have gotten Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings. Just hiring Pete Carroll to me just is a lateral move in a sense, because at best you're a 8-9 win team, but the objective should be to compete for Super Bowls, and you're not doing that with Pete Carroll. The Jags hire Liam Coen. He had a really controversial exit from Tampa Bay. We would definitely dive into him going ghost on the Bucks in favor of this Jaguars job. The Bears get the guy that everybody wanted in Ben Johnson. I think that the Bears are in safe hands with him. I could see him being able to overcome the history of dysfunction that the Bears have been known to cause to their quarterbacks, because Caleb Williams did show a good amount of promise during his rookie season. He just needs an innovative offensive mind to help him put it all together. And Aaron Glenn gets hired by the New York Jets. I think that he was too good for this job. The New York Jets, I think they are extremely blessed to have him as their head coach, considering just how much of a dumpster fire they've been over these last couple of years. Before we dive into it, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon if you're new so you get notified when we drop new content and when we go live. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts from. Apple, Spotify, Amazon. The JT Sports Podcast is available, and let's dive into it. 73-year-old Pete Carroll is the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Raise your hand if you saw this one coming. This makes no sense to me. Pete Carroll turned 74 in September. He easily is the oldest head coach in the NFL, and he looks like he's going to be an easy one-and-done hire, because it looked like the Raiders had a good chance at landing Ben Johnson. Instead, he jumps at the opportunity to coach Caleb Williams in Chicago, but I thought that they would have went with Brian Flores. Pete Carroll doesn't give you an opportunity to not only make it to the playoffs, but to even have a winning record in a division where you have to play Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert twice, with Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. You got Sean Payton, who seems to have the ball rolling in the right direction in Denver, with Bo Nix at the helm at QB. The Raiders are not in the position to land Cam Ward or Shador in the upcoming NFL draft. Do they go after Sam Darnold in free agency? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's like, are you going to run it back with Aiden O'Connell again? It's just, Pete Carroll is a really good motivator. All right, he's going to get the most out of every single player on this roster. You're going to be more competitive with Pete Carroll than what you ever were with Antonio Pierce or Josh McDaniels. But you just don't have enough talent to be able to compete in the division where you have Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, and Sean Payton, because this version of Pete Carroll that you're getting is not the prime version of Pete Carroll that coached up the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl win a few years ago. And his defenses in Seattle, his last few years were really awful. They always ranked near the bottom of the league in every category. They were not good against the run. His cover three scheme was really outdated. There's a reason why Seattle moved on from Pete Carroll. And, for the Raiders, I just don't think that you're going to go anywhere with Pete Carroll besides you being a little bit more competitive. Yeah, maybe you have about an extra win or two and you're a 7, 8 win team, 9 team max. But I laughed when I saw this news pop up on my phone. I could not believe it. With Tom Brady being named the minority owner of the Raiders, I was expecting them to come away with a way better head coach than 73-year-old Pete Carroll. He just isn't fitted anymore to compete in a division that's home to three of the best coaches in the NFL. He is outdated. Yeah, he's a high energy, high character guy that the players are going to love, but it's just the Raiders are going nowhere with the hiring of Pete Carroll. I just don't see any reason why Pete Carroll will be able to turn around the Raiders, where he's a defensive minded coach at his core, and his defenses in Seattle were really, really awful. So I don't know about this one for the Las Vegas Raiders. The Jacksonville Jaguars have hired Liam Coen as their new head coach in a hiring that has been surrounded in nothing but controversy. So let's start off with how Liam Coen ghosted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to become the head coach of the Jaguars. So initially, he had made a verbal agreement to the Buccaneers that he was going to sign a new extension that would have made him the highest paid coordinator in the league. And then when it was time for him to make it official, to sign on the dotted line, he ends up not showing up to the contract signing. He goes ghost on Tampa Bay. Their general manager, Todd Bowles, they call his phone a few times. They're not able to get a hold of him. And then a few hours later, his agent calls him back, lets them know that he's in Jacksonville. And then he calls Todd Bowles and lets him know that, Jacksonville has given him an opportunity that he's looking at. And he didn't do this not only last minute, but he just did this completely out of nowhere when he already previously committed to the Buccaneers that he was going to remain in Tampa for at least another season. And then the Jaguars, the way they went about this was just so shady. So they told Liam Coen to keep this second interview in secret so they could fulfill their Rooney Rule obligations, because the Rooney Rule requires every team to have to interview a minority candidate. And at this point, the Jaguars already knew that they were going to make Liam Coen their guy. So therefore, they were just just wasting everybody's time, their time, and the black coaches that they were interviewing for the job, because they just were trying to get the Rooney Rule obligation out of the way. And then they fired Trent Baalke before the official meeting took place, which, it just would have made more sense for the Jaguars to already have fired Trent Baalke if, they knew that they were going to cave anyway to getting rid of him to entice any of the head coaching candidates that they were interested in, because it was already widely known before the season ended that nobody wanted to work with Trent Baalke. So if you were going to eventually cave and end up, hiring Liam Coen and allowing him to be the first head coach since Kyle Shanahan got hired by the 49ers to have a say in who his GM is going to be and the personnel, you should have already did this ahead of time. And maybe you could have hired a Aaron Glenn or a Ben Johnson, because although both Ben Johnson and Liam Coen both don't have any head coaching experience, Ben Johnson is a safer hire than Liam Coen because he has shown that he's a great play caller over a span of 2 years. He has a deeper resume than what Liam Coen has, just being the OC of the Buccaneers for just one season. And the Jaguars, you kind of are being really desperate because when you hire a guy like Liam Coen that wasn't in the tier one of head coaching candidates out there, and you fire a general manager who you already should have fired ahead of time to entice him to change his mind and to take this job, and then you increase his contract to where he's not making too far off from what Ben Johnson is going to make it, although he's not in the same tier as what Ben Johnson is. It just screams desperation. And anytime you make a hire out of desperation, they don't work out. But, for me personally, although this is a desperation hire, and, it's just red flags all around this hiring, I still believe that Liam Coen is a great hire for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the best candidate that they could have hired due to, how dysfunctional this franchise has been these last couple of years. And the fact that they waited so long to fire Trent Baalke prolonged the process as well. But the Jaguars had to hire an offensive-minded coach because with them giving Trevor Lawrence such a massive contract extension last offseason, and with the way things have played out these last couple of months, with him getting injured, and then when he is on the field, he's not playing up to standards. The Jaguars had to invest in getting an offensive-minded coach so they can try to kick the tires one more time on getting the most out of Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence has shown the ability to play good football. It's not like the Jaguars paid him without him showing that he can be a high-level quarterback in the NFL. In 2022, he was really good. That's why the expectations were so high for him and the Jags in 2023. And when the Jaguars ended up missing the playoffs, they go 9-8, and Trevor Lawrence ends up not playing well during the second half of that season, you kind of started to feel like things were about to sour under Doug Peterson, so a change was needed. And Trent Baalke, he hasn't done a good job with the free agency signings nor the last couple of draft classes. I mean, the dude drafted Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. So with you having Liam Coen, the Jaguars now have an opportunity to where you're getting the guy that comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. And if you hire anybody from Sean McVay's coaching staff, you're in pretty good hands because he has produced a lot of good head coaches. Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, there's some pretty good coaches that come from Sean McVay's coaching tree. Zach Taylor. So for the Jaguars, I felt like, getting Liam Coen was the best hire they could have made given their circumstances. In some capacity, Liam Coen, he might have been too good for Jacksonville. He's done a really good job with the Buccaneers offense, building on what Dave Canales had built his first season in Tampa Bay. And, he was able to do something that even Bruce Arians, when he won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, had a hard time being able to do. And that's established a consistent running game. And he was able to do that with Bucky Irving. And Bucky Irving was the best rookie running back in the NFL with Liam Coen calling the plays. The offensive line looked much better. And Baker Mayfield had the best season of his career And you can kind of make somewhat of an argument that Baker Mayfield deserves to be in the MVP conversation with how well he played this season and how well his stats look. So if there ever was a coach out there who could be able to revive Trevor Lawrence and get him playing good football again, it is Liam Coen. This is a great hire. This is the best candidate that the Jaguars could have gotten to fill their head coaching vacancy, because you're getting somebody that comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree, and that coaching tree has already produced Zach Taylor, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur. So you got 3 head coaches that have been pretty successful that have coached under Sean McVay. And with Liam Coen coming from that coaching tree, this may be the best hire the Jaguars have made since they first hired Tom Coughlin when this franchise entered the NFL. So I'm really confident that Liam Coen is going to work out in Jacksonville. Offensive-minded coach. He has a really good scheme. He's young. He's going to be able to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence. The Chicago Bears, for as dysfunctional as what this franchise has been over the last 2 decades, Ben Johnson is the right head coach to finally be able to bring about change in the Bears franchise, because Caleb Williams, I still believe, has all the talent to be as good as what he was hyped up to be coming out of USC, that being the next Patrick Mahomes. And if Ben Johnson truly is this next Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type coach, if he can develop Caleb Williams and help him reach his full potential, there's no reason why the Bears next season can't be in the same position that the Washington Commanders are in right now in the NFC Championship game with Jaden Daniels, because the arm strength, the athleticism, all the tools are there for Caleb Williams to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And with Ben Johnson's creativity as a play caller, the wide receivers that he's going to be inheriting, Rome Odunze can play. We know what DJ Moore can do. You got Cole Kmet, one of the better tight ends in the game. They know that they have to commit on improving the offensive line. And when they do that, you have a head coach that, with his offensive prowess, can elevate Caleb Williams to playing at an MVP level in 2025. Ben Johnson, I believe that this is a fantastic hire. It's the best hire. It's the right hire. It's the only hire that the Chicago Bears could have made this offseason to actually be able to elevate the quarterback position for a change. Now, Matt Nagy was a hot name, and when they hired him, there was a lot of hope that he could have Mitch Trubisky playing at a high level. And they did get to the playoffs a couple of times with Matt Nagy. But the first time they went to the playoffs, it was mostly due to how good Vic Fangio, who was the defensive coordinator that year when they had the double doink that sent them home in the postseason, his defense was phenomenal that season. And he eventually got the Denver Broncos head coaching job. And that's when Matt Nagy started to struggle as the head man in Chicago. But with Ben Johnson, though, I think he's going to get the defensive coordinator hire right. There already is a lot of talent on that Bears team that Ryan Poles has assembled. He just needs to improve the trenches. I would not be surprised if we see the Bears easily go from worst to first in this division this upcoming season. Because right now, with the Minnesota Vikings having questions at quarterback, and your defense still is lacking in a lot of areas in terms of talent. You got to re-sign a lot of guys that are set to hit the open market hit the open market come March. For the Detroit Lions, you got to replace 2 great coordinators. There definitely is a path that, if Ben Johnson ends up being as good as he's been hyped up to be over these last 2 years, where we could see the Chicago Bears win this division, and maybe they're on the doorstep of making it to the Super Bowl. Because Caleb Williams, let's not act like everybody didn't have them as their QB1 in last year's draft class. Probably only about 3 or 4% of you all out there had Jaden Daniels or anybody else ranked higher than Caleb Williams. So I think that Ben Johnson is going to do a fantastic job as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. This was the only hire that they could have made, and this was the right hire. And although he is going to be in a tough division, you do have questions about how is his game management going to be? How well is he going to be able to manage the clock? Being around Dan Campbell and with what we've seen out of him and his play calling in certain situations, I don't think that you're going to have to worry about the Bears losing games the same way they did under Matt Eberflus with Ben Johnson as the head coach. This is going to be the best head coach that the Bears have hired since the 80s. For the New York Jets to be able to land Aaron Glenn as their new head coach is a slam dunk hiring, because for this organization to been through as many head coaches as what they've been through in so many years, and for them to be so dysfunctional, they don't deserve Aaron Glenn as their head coach. Aaron Glenn, he wanted this job. He wanted to take on the challenge of being able to do something that no head coach in the last couple of years has been able to do since the early 2010s when Rex Ryan first took over as the head coach has been able to do. And that's actually make the Jets a playoff team. And for Aaron Glenn to take this Jets head coaching job, it's for one reason and one reason only. That's he believes he can win right away with this team. He's a defensive-minded head coach, and the New York Jets have one of the most talented defenses in the NFL. We know that Sauce Gardner, when he's fully healthy, he's one of the top 3 corners in the game. They got a really great defensive line that's really good at getting after the quarterback. You have a really great defense. You got really good starters. You got really good depth. Your offense is where the concerns lie. And with Aaron Glenn being the defensive-minded head coach, it's going to make or break him who he hires as his offensive coordinator. Because if you can get the offensive coordinator hire right and you can get quarterback right, then you're going to end up having a good stint as a defensive coach. And Aaron Glenn coaching the New York Jets, not knowing what's going to happen with the future of Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, I think he looked good enough to where you can bring him back and maybe try to bring in a younger quarterback or aim to draft a quarterback in next year's draft class. But Aaron is a good bridge quarterback. You know, he still played pretty decent enough to where he's a capable starting quarterback despite of his age. And if you can give him better protection, you know, the New York Jets could possibly be a wild card team next year, because that defense, if Aaron Glenn is the bright offensive mind that he's been hyped up to be, the Jets should easily have no worse than a top 8, top 10 defense next season. So for the New York Jets to land Aaron Glenn, in spite of how dysfunctional and how awfully ran this team has been under Woody Johnson these last couple of years, you know, this is an A+ hire for them considering their situation. And this is the toughest job out of any of the available coaching jobs during this coaching carousel. Because Aaron Glenn, you wonder if he can be able to overcome the dysfunctional front office. You wonder if he can find a way to solve the lingering woes that this team has had at quarterback for the last couple of years. You know, and if he reaches his potential, maybe you have somebody that is the second coming of Mike Tomlin if the Jets ownership allows him to be. So Aaron Glenn, I'm really shocked that the New York Jets were able to land him just because he felt above the Jets. For a team that has the reputation that they have, they seem to always be able to land the most promising head coaching candidates. And I thought that Robert Saleh will work out. I think Robert Saleh still can work out when he gets an opportunity to reset as a defensive coordinator somewhere and he ends up becoming a head coach next off season, because I mean he's been getting so many different head coaching interviews that you have to believe that teams are interested in him and he will get another opportunity somewhere else. And Adam Gase, a lot of people would have given him a second opportunity after he didn't work out his first stint with the Miami Dolphins, despite how bad he was with the Jets. So it's like, they had Todd Bowles as well. So for the New York Jets, they seem to always come away with the best head coaching candidates available, even though they're just so awfully ran and so dysfunctional. But I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to succeed. We'll see. But I appreciate you guys for tuning into this episode. Make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe, give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you guys shortly with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.